My name is Benjamin Brandt. I am a part of the Getting Paid team at PCC. My official silly made-up title is Subject Matter Expert and Consultant, which means I mostly spend all my time talking to billers and office managers and stealing all your ideas and passing them off as mine. So about this course, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about reporting and oversight, specifically from the perspective of billers and billing teams, billing managers. Anybody who handles money, this is going to be like for things that you can do for you, for your employees, as your actual job. And I'll kind of split up like the roles and responsibilities of some of these reports so we can talk about like whose hands they're going to be in. There's also going to be a lot of reports here, so we're not going to have a lot of time to spend on each individual report. So if you have any questions about a report that you see or other uses or anything like that, feel free to write it down, and when we get to the end, if there's time, I'll answer questions there. If we run out of time there as well, I can just meet you in the hall and we can talk about it in the hall instead of going to the next class. That happens all the time at PCC conferences. So this is going to be split into different sections. It's going to be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly reporting. These are just, suggestions at timeframes for the maximum amount you should spend on them. So if you see something in here where it's like, oh, you should look at your AR every month. Don't be like, but I look at my AR every day, or I look at my AR every week. If that works for you, that's great. You should do what works for your business. But if something says it's a monthly report, don't be like, oh no, I've been doing this every day. Let me do it every month because Ben put this in monthly reporting. Don't do that. Keep doing what you're doing. This is literally just split up because it's easier to say, like, let's start by talking about daily reports and move on from there. So the first report to talk about is the huddle sheet. So the huddle sheet is in the report library. It was originally designed as a clinical report for the nurses and the providers to get together and say, here's everybody that's coming in for the day. They're coming in for like an earache, and then you have this family that has 3 kids and 2 of them are a well visit and their little brother's sick or things like that, right? So that you kind of had a feel for how things were going, because you're supposed to huddle in the morning. That is highly customizable, and because of all of the sheets on there, does that look okay to you guys? That's super. It's not blurry on here.
I think it's a limitation
of the projector? Okay, we'll have to make do. But the slides will be available, so if you want to download the slides and either look at them as we go or look at them after the fact, on the slide deck they're much clearer and you can see what the actual headings are on some of these, but I'll explain as we go through. This is highly customizable, so you can do things like take out the reason for the visit, the provider they're seeing if you want to take it or if you leave it, and replace it with things like, this is the amount that they currently have due as a personal balance. This is the guarantor's name and phone number. So you can use this to make like a morning sheet to huddle up as like a billing team to say like, oh, front desk, when you're not busy, these are the people we want you to call. Or, oh, back in the billing office before you start your day, if you want to reach out to those people, this is what you need to do. Or even, we're going to leave this on the front desk, and I want you to put notes in when you talk to each of these families. If they don't pay their balance, this is the reason why they didn't pay it, right? So it's a very good kind of standard report, or non-standard report because you're customizing it, to make something for your practice to say, hey, this is how we're going to track people that are coming in where we might have to talk to them as billers. And you can also put things like status flags on there too. So if they have specific billing status flags, you can have that as a column as well. The next thing is the billing status report. This is called visits by billing status. This is also in the EHR. In the report library, and this is specifically for making sure everything that's ready to be posted by you as a biller that's been made ready by a clinician is posted for whatever period of time you're looking for. So one thing that's going to be interesting on this slide deck is there's going to be two reports that are almost virtually identical. There's visits by billing status and there's encounters by billing status. A visit in terms of like PCC talk, right, is somebody is on your schedule and they got seen by a doctor, right? Where an encounter can be things like missed appointments, telemedicine where somebody fills something out on like your messaging tab and they put things in there. Like any type of fees, any type of newborn services, where you go into a patient's chart and you create a new billing encounter and you build it from there instead of building it from the visit screen. So the visits by billing status, if you run for ready for posting or new items, is great for the end of your day when you're saying, I've made an agreement with my clinicians that everything for yesterday is going to be posted by the end of today. Everything for today is going to be posted by the end of today. Whatever agreement you have with them, this is a great way to look at that without relying just on the schedule screen itself to say, is there anything that I might have missed? Let me run this report and see if someone comes up. Then I can go straight into their chart and post the charges from the billing history rather than like navigate on the screen and mess with filters and look at the schedule screen to try and just gauge it by the little orange ready to charge button. The daily check, this is something that's still in practice management only. And this is the reason it hasn't been high priority is this is mostly for offices that are of a larger size or have like a certified coder. So a lot of times if you're a smaller practice, then the person that's posting charges is the same person that's auditing and reviewing things before they go out the door. So they do that as part of the purpose of checking through the charges. Like they'll be like, oh, I need to set this modifier, I need to adjust what diagnosis is in the right place. But if you are a larger practice or you have a coder who's looking at other people that are doing work, then what daily check allows for is you can see everything that got posted for the day, and it has the charge, the CPT code with the diagnoses in order for everything that got posted for the day. So you can print that out, old school style and go through and highlight and mark things so you know before claims get actually submitted out the door that you as the oversight of that are going through and saying, oh, somebody put an accident code in the primary diagnosis spot. I need to fix this. Oh, this is a well visit and a sick visit together and somebody didn't put the correct modifier on it before it leaves. So this is kind of like your last check before you submit your claims. Total payments and payment details by check number. This realistically is something that you're only going to need to run if your math doesn't match, right? So if you're somebody that posts checks into the system, either paper EOBs or ERAs, and do any combination of auto posting, completely manually posting, or both where you auto post and then you have your exception list, then you can look at all of your EOBs because they'll have a total on them, right? So either the ERAs in your system, you'll be able to look at that posted screen to say, here's all the check numbers and what the amount was, or you'll be able to look at your paper EOBs and say, here's your check number and here's your amount. And so you would run your payment totals by check number first and just verify that all of your checks were like, okay, this one was $1,000, this one was $12,000, whatever, and make sure what you've posted into the system matches with the check number. If for whatever reason you ever have a check where the total doesn't match what's on your actual bank statement or your ERA or your EOB, then you can run payment details by check number, and what that will show you is basically a mirror image of your EOB, right? Where it's like, here's the patient, here's how much money, here's the patient, here's how much money, here's the patient, here's how much money. So, if you fat finger and put in a 56 cents instead of 57 cents, or you literally just miss like one charge line or something like that, you can match that up against your EOB and say, oh, here's where I made the mistake. I just have to fix that one line. Now I'm going to balance out at the end of the day. The payment reconciliation report, this is going to be for anybody that handles money at the practice, like physically handles, if you have, and when I say handles money, I even mean if you have like a card point system at the front and it's printing out, somebody ran a credit card and you're putting that away with actual cash. You're going to use this to say, this is everything that I handled physically for the day, and that should match up when you give it to your supervisor, right? So everyone should have some kind of like, even if you don't have an actual physical cash bag, you should be responsible for anything that you've touched, and you should be able to match that up against reporting at the end of the day for somebody to allow you to say, you're good, you can leave, all of your money matches up, right? Like you collected $50 in cash, you collected $15 in personal check, and you had $350 in credit cards. Here's all your credit card receipts. Here's your actual cash money. Here's the one check. That all matches against this report. And this, again, is going to be in the EHR at this point. So traditionally, if you've been using Partner, you might be using something like the deposit report. This is just the deposit report renamed for inside the EHR. It's called the payment reconciliation report. The day sheet report, this is going to be more for like your administrators, right? So the day sheet is literally going to be every action that occurred in a day for both charges and payments. So basically you'll see, user Ben posted $150 for this account. User Ben posted $75 payment for this other account. User Ben took $75 away and then added $75 back. So you'll see two lines because this money was not linked. So he took it from being attributed to no provider to attributed to provider Steve. So all of those have their own little line items that go down as you go down through Daysheet. And there's certain like sub-levels of reporting you can do with this. Like on here, I have it set to sort by not only everything that occurred, but also the user who posted it and the provider it was posted to. So if you want to say, I want to see everything Ben posted to 6 providers, and then I want to see everything Jen posted to 6 providers, you can sub-sort that as well with menu items. The one thing that's important on here is this subtitle through sort level. This says 2, and there's 2 sort bys by here. So whatever you sort by on here, you want this to match up with how many things you have here. We can also, if this is something that you're using and you're putting those in every time you're manually putting those in, there is a configuration setting where you can say like, this is what the standard is. So like put my sort bys all in place. So it loads up that way every time I get into this.
This is still just in DarkSide, right?
This is still just in practice management, yeah. So moving on from daily reporting to weekly reporting, the first thing is the copay collection report. This is really good, especially if you're an office, like I'll call this the fun office, right? You have an office where once a month you give somebody a Starbucks card because they got the highest percentage of collections on people coming in and paying their copays, right? You run some kind of contest or keep track of this. The reason why this is weekly is because it's really important to look at this either the very first day of the week or the very last day of the week. Because the way PCC's system works is all of the money in it is variable, right? So if you have somebody that owes you $30 for a copay today, and they didn't pay at the front desk, but then on Friday they're at home and they log into their portal and they pay that, when you run the copay collection report, all of a sudden it's going to say for me, if that's the only copay I did this week, I'm at 100% because it's looking at what the state of that money is right now today, as opposed to what it was on the day that they came in. So it's important that you're only looking at that in like a 7-day block of time, and you're only looking at the past 7 days. Because if you look at it from like 6 months ago, then it's gonna say everything's at 100% because at that point, everybody's been paid. Yeah.
What would the value be of having that be a daily report rather than a weekly?
Oh, we've moved on to weekly.
As a daily instead of a
Oh, yeah, again, like, you might have missed this at the beginning, but these are like the maximum you should spend on something. So if you want to run it every day, that's perfectly fine, but I would not run it more than a week at a time. And we'll get into that, especially when we talk about like AR reporting. All the AR stuff in here is like in the monthly reporting, but a lot of people in this room are looking at your AR like every single day. So don't take that as, oh, I'm only supposed to be doing that once a month. Claims that need corrections. So this is for people who have moved on from practice management and started submitting their claims through PCC EHR. So there's a claims section in the tools for the EHR for gathering up all of your claims together and sending them out to all of your insurances. And one thing that this has added is a work list for needs corrections. So when you run out your claims in practice management, right, the old way, then you would get a little screen that's like, there's an error on this thing. Do you want to fix it? Hit like F2 to fix this, or hit F whatever to skip. And if you skip it, it goes to error, and you have to go into oops, and you have to redo everything. When you're using the claim submission in PCC, the way that that's scrubbed is it prepares everything for you, and then instead of sending things to error, anything that either has a problem or you decide not to submit, it just puts it back to like ECS Aetna or ECS Cigna or whatever the starting batch is until you finish it out. So what needs corrections allows you to do is see the reason that it's broken, similar to how you would have seen that in practice management, but then it lets you like actually open up the patient's chart and like fix their policy certificate number or delete it straight from there instead of going to oops and deleting it and putting it onto a different insurance. And there's also one thing that's really handy is there's a validate button. So after you fix something, you'll click validate. It'll say, oh yeah, I went through and I didn't find any other errors. This is now validated. If there is another error, like they didn't have a date of birth and they didn't have a last name. I fixed the date of birth, I ran validate. Now your error changes and says, oh, you're missing this now. Until it's fully validated, it will just keep updating the error until you're finished. When that's validated, it's just going to sit there in the submission queue. The next time you run out claims submissions, it's going to just send it out the same way that it would with a brand new claim. Yeah, Jenna?
Just a quick comment. So I've used this.
Yep.
And I'll fix whatever needs correcting, and then once I hit validate, then it gives me the place of service is not correct, but I only have one office.
Sure.
So
I would talk to support with that, with a patient example, and we can look at it for you and see what's going on there.
I've also noticed that sometimes when you rerun it, some of them will disappear, some of them you have to manually like delete them. Is there
Yes. So the reason why you will get ones that you have to delete, and this is a workflow issue, is front desk has a new patient come in, or has a patient come in. Patient used to have Blue Cross, now they have Cigna, right? So the front desk is like, great, you're all checked in. I just wrote down on a Post-it note like that I scanned your card in, but I haven't actually physically made those changes while you're standing in front of me. They get distracted, they go get a coffee, they do whatever. Doctor sees them. You as billers are like, I'm right on top of everything. This is ready to post. I'm posting it. So you post it to Blue Cross Blue Shield. Then before you submit claims for the day, the person at the front desk comes back and they're like, oh, I have time now, let me go and fix this. They go fix it, change the policy to Cigna. Then when you try and send your claims out, it says, this is no longer a policy that's on for this date of service. So the way to do that is you have to then make a new claim for Cigna, and that Blue Cross claim is just going to be like a piece of garbage at that point, right? It's like we're never going to send this to Blue Cross because they literally didn't have Blue Cross today. My front desk just didn't put in that there was a change before I posted things. That's why there's a delete button in there, is because you'll take that Blue Cross version and you'll have to delete it. That's the one reason why that there's a delete key in there, and the one reason why it wouldn't disappear from the list. If you see that a lot, you should be yelling at your front desk and being like, why are you waiting to change policies until after the person's checked in? Part of the check-in thing should be updating all of their demographics before you click, yup, you're ready for the doctor.
So the only 2 times that you should have to delete it is that reason and a car code, usually, the 2 that I've seen, right? Is that what you?
Yeah.
Could you repeat they're having trouble hearing?
Oh, sorry.
Just repeat what she,
Repeat what
Yes.
April said. Yeah, so April was saying sometimes you have to delete things from this report rather than from this workflow rather than it just disappearing for the list. And so front desk mistakes are usually the reason that you'd have to delete something. So moving on from there, we've got the claim and billing error report. So this is going to be everything where you tried to send something out to insurance and then something came back either from insurance, a clearinghouse, or PCC that said, like, we're not accepting this into our adjudication system. And if anybody attended this, either the what's coming next this morning, you probably saw that this is going to be in the EHR with an upcoming release. But as of right now, it's still in practice management under the Smart Report Suite. So one thing with this as well is it's all charge-based, right? So you'll see here, we have Jasper, Orlando, it's all 625 here. So this is probably only one claim, only one encounter, but you see a bunch of lines, so you're like, oh my God, what's going on with, Jasper? Why is he in here so much? In the upcoming version of this, we've got it shrunk down to encounters, so if you have a single error on a single claim, you'll just see 1 instead of like 6 if there's multiple charges. Okay, so when I started, I talked about visits by billing status and how that's your schedule screen. This is the encounters by billing status. You'll notice if you look at the slide deck, it's basically the same exact report, just with a different word here. The advantage of doing this one weekly is instead of running it just for like today, you'd usually run it back to say, I want to see all the encounters for like the last month, and I want to see both not only what's ready for me, but what is ready for the doctor and what haven't they made ready for me. So usually you'll split this in and run it twice, where it's like you'll run your version of it in the last month, give me every single encounter in the system that's been ready for me that hasn't been posted into the system yet. Because maybe a doctor made something from 3 weeks ago ready and then didn't tell me about it, so I didn't know it was there for me to need to do. And then on the opposite side, you want to look for everything from like, again, whatever your agreement is with your clinicians. If they say, we're going to have all of our charts ready 2 days after we see a patient, you go back 2 days and you go, 90 days back from there. And then you'd give them a list and be like, here's 15 charts that are more than 2 days old. Some of them are like 3 or 4 weeks. I really need you to like get these ready for me because the clock is ticking and we need to get these out to insurance, right? So this is basically like your oversight report for work that you need to make sure gets done so it gets into the process of being on that clock. So moving on to monthly reporting, I also put some extra info here. I've already said this a couple times about accounts receivable, but I split accounts receivable down into monthly specifically because there's a lot of very valuable AR information in the EHR dashboard, and the dashboard only resets once a month, so that information will only be like between a day and 30 days fresh. So there's no way to update the dashboard in real time to say like, oh, I want to see my percentage of AR that's over 60 days old as of right now. You can't do that in the dashboard, but the visualization for it is really, really strong. So I wanted to split AR as a whole into monthly reporting so I could cover that all as one section of accounts receivable. So detailed AR summary report. Anytime you go into the dashboard and you go into your financials, there's a section with 3 account receivable reports. Every single one of those is going to have a related tool section that says detailed AR summary report, and that will bring you to a whole suite of information, some of it that you can change, all of it that's visualized, where you can see, you know, how your AR is by provider, by month, year over year changes for months. So like January last year versus January of this year in terms of your AR, your current average days. So AR days is like if you take everything that you build out and then you average how many days it took you to get paid for all of those. Maybe you're at 23 days, maybe you're at 30 days, maybe you're at 10 days. It's all going to depend, because if you have like a Medicaid that always takes 6 months to pay you and everybody else pays you in 15 days, then maybe based on the amount of Medicaid you have, you're actually like 45 days because of those 6 month ones, right? So you can see how that is changing over time. You can see percentage of each percentage of AR in each 30-day bucket. Anyone who's familiar with the INS aging report, which will be one of the slides that's coming up, there's categories for current, 30 to 60, et cetera, that have the percentages on there. I'll show that in detail when we get to that slide. You know, current total AR in the 60 to 90 day category, because that's your warning bucket, right? I haven't hit 120 days yet, but this is the next closest category, right? So this is where I really need to pay attention to things, as well as what's over 60 days, and personal versus insurance AR. So if you split out the personal balances from the insurance AR and we're tracking them separately, that's in there as well as monthly trends of personal AR. So again, moving on to INS aging, this is where you're going to see percentage totals here under categories. So typically most practices will see the largest category in current, right? Because it's less than 30 days old. And then it will usually decrease from there in 30 to 60, decrease from there to 60 to 90. And then usually the other highest category other than current is going to be your 120 plus, because that's the things that you've been fighting normally. Also, because you're including personal, depending on how much your clinicians are like, oh, well, just let that go, you might have a huge amount in 120 plus for personal balances. And again, usually what I'll use this as is kind of like an all-encompassing, like, just here's a snapshot of my practice, because I want to work certain AR categories. So, something on here, I might go after, the Healthy Kids HMO 300 whatever dollars that's in that category. That might be like what I'm setting for myself as like a daily task of like, that's the money I'm going after today, which you would use the next report for, which is Insurance Accounts Receivable Detail Report. Some of you might know this as INSCO AR. So in here, this is where you would set up like, I'm looking for just things in like 60 to 90 days. I don't want every single like insurance plan. I just want the specific ones that I know have a lot of money I have to go after. And then you can pick things like if you want to show the billing history, if you want to show the encounter notes. The way that PCC recommends you do this is if you're really good at taking notes, right, into your encounters, is to actually turn off the billing history itself, because that doesn't really tell you anything, right? Like, it's great when you run this initially to say like, oh yeah, this went out and it didn't get paid and this is when I sent it out and that type of information. But if you're actually speaking with representatives, then if you put in like a billing note, right? Say you talk to UHC and you talk to somebody named Barbara on the phone and she gave you like a case number and said, oh yeah, this is going to be cleared up within 2 weeks. That's way more important than like, oh, I sent out a bill or I sent out a claim 3 different times in the last 3 months. Why did you send a claim that many times? It's not really important. The important part is like the actual reason you did it, which is why I'm a big fan of making sure you get those notes in there. One thing, again, to amplify this is traditionally you would go into correct mistakes, hit F5, hit F4 to post a new note, and that's where those notes are coming from. Anywhere in the EHR, when you're in the charge tools or the encounter tools or placing a new encounter, or even the new tools that are coming out, you'll see a button that says post an encounter note. An encounter note is the same as the visit notes that are here. There's 2 different types of notes. There's an encounter note which is specific to charges from a certain encounter on a certain day, and then there's account notes which are like, I talked to mom and she said you need to talk to dad to get this paid. So account notes are only going to be in the payment tool. Encounter notes are going to be anywhere where you're dealing with like insurance and charges. So total charges and payments by provider and month. This is one of the newer oversight reports that has come over into the report library in the EHR. There's actually a category now for financial oversight, and this is in that report as well as the check reports that we saw earlier. So this is just a very standard, like running the end of the month. This is going to show the total amount of charges that you charged out for each provider and the total amount of payments and refunds that you did for each provider. And the important thing to remember with this is because this is based on posting, right? Then it's going to be the charges that happened in this month and the payments that happened in this month. This isn't payments related to the charges that happened this month. If something got paid in February or paid from an encounter in February, it came in now. So this is kind of like your like P&L report, whatever, for your providers, where it's like, okay, here's everything you're eventually going to get paid on, and here's what you got paid on for things that you did in the past. So when they ask you those types of questions of like what we did per month, that's going to be that breakdown. What I see as kind of like a godsend report for like a breakdown when providers are like, but I don't understand. I did these things and I assume that the money just instantly comes into my bank account because I did it 10 minutes ago. This report I find really helpful. This is in the Smart Report Suite in Practice Management, and this is called the Total Visits, Charges, and Payments by Provider Report. And so what this will do is it will actually break down so what it does is it takes all the numbers of visits that they've done, it divides that by the amount of charges that have been done, and it gives you an average amount of charge per visit that they come in for. So for every kid that you see, on average, you're charging out this amount. And then it does the same thing by taking all the money that's been deposited and telling you the average amount that you get per one of those visits. And they'll say, that seems really low, or that sounds great, or whatever they tell you. But also over here, it will have a percentage of what's been collected so far. So if they say, well, I want to see my April stuff, and you try to explain to them, well, all of your stuff from April hasn't been paid yet, you can run this and be like, yeah, you're at 70%. So even though this is saying you're making $110 or whatever like that, you have to remember you've got another $40,000 that hasn't been adjudicated on. if we go by, you know, the amount that you're getting as a deposit for now, I can be like, oh, you're making on average 110 of that 40, and there's, you know, this many visits. You can do some simple math with that and be like, yeah, you're going to get another $20,000. That's going to raise you up to like 117 or something like that when you get to 100%, if you just like work averages and things like that. And again, this is one of those things where if you want to talk to me at PCC, just give me a call and be like, can you explain to me how I figure out the math for that? I'll help you with that. It's not that drastic to ballpark it. But this is great to kind of get them to understand, like, yes, just because you did something doesn't mean you've already been paid for it. So missed appointment rates. This is one of those ones where, you know, this is a great starting point with what we just talked about, especially if you're in a practice where they haven't instituted a fee for missing appointments. Yeah, it's like, oh, it's not that big a deal. We don't want to like upset our clients or our you know, families. We don't want to have to rewrite the financial policy report and do that. Then you take what we just talked about. So, okay, so you're averaging $130 a visit, and then you're having, you know, 70 visits a month where somebody no-shows and we don't get like a walk-in or a call-in to fill that spot, so it's just dead space on our calendar. So now I take those, I multiply them together, and it's like, oh yeah, you lost $50,000 this month because you said, oh, it's not a big deal, right? And then all of a sudden they're gonna say, oh wait, no, this is a big deal. So you take your missed appointment rates, you compare that against what they have there, and then you make a policy for what's gonna happen when you miss things. One story I always like to talk about is if you're in a hyper-competitive market, right? Like we had a client that was going with PCC in San Francisco Bay, right? So like tech capital of whatever, very, very like, you know, there's 6-month waiting list to get into a pediatrician's office because they're always full. And so it was they literally had their financial policy that said, okay, our providers average like $210 per visit. If you miss, if you like don't cancel an appointment within 24 hours, you're paying a $210 fee for a missed appointment. And so offices that are like, I'm charging $25. It's like, yeah, you're charging $25. You're still losing $90, $100 by having that person not be there. You like, not everyone can do that, right? Because a lot of people will be like, well, then I'm just going to go to a different pediatrician if you charge that much because there's competition. But some places it's literally going to be like, hey, yep, go ahead.
Is this report only based on when you miss an appointment via scheduling? Like
Yes. This is based on you going into the schedule, and when somebody doesn't show up because you don't charge them in, you go into that patient's account and there's a place to mark it as missed. That's where it pulls this up.
Is there another way to run a report for when you create a billing encounter to charge them a missed fee?
Yeah. So
Ben, can you repeat? Sorry.
so the question was, if you're not using the scheduler to pull up this information, then is there a report that you can run by encounter? So technically it wouldn't be by encounter, but it'd be by charge reason. So like if you go into your procedure table, you have a charge that you make, you can run charge-based reports to say, oh yeah, last month I used my, you know, NS CPT code for no-show, you know, 75 times for this provider or what have you. So you could do it that way as well. So following that, back in the report library, there's also the appointment report. So the missed appointments is great for, you know, like if you're looking at a past 30-day period, right? But if you want data that's like up to date to the minute, right? Then there's things called data source reports in the report library in the EHR, which are basically like these giant reports that were designed to build smaller reports out of. There's a patient report, a appointment report, a pharmacy, like a ERX style report. They're all ones where you can build smaller reports. So in the default, like large data source report, there's already a appointment status of missed. So you can literally just take the giant report, not customize it, just mark it as missed, put your date range in and be like, okay, here's everyone we have as marked as missed. This is a good way to make sure that you're billing for everybody, because what you can also do is you can mark them missed, and like Jenna was saying, what if we charge somebody for them and we use a specific CPT code? If you mark them if you have a workflow where you mark them as missed, and then your billers are running to see who's missed, if they're not just telling you, then you can go in, create a new encounter with a missed charge code for a new encounter, and then after that you go back to the chart and change it from missed to canceled, and then there's like a reason for cancellation or whatever, and you can put in like, this was missed, switching to canceled because we've charged them a fee, or what have you. Then when you run this report, it will only have people on it that you haven't put charges in for. So payments and adjustments by payment type. This is what I refer to as like save your own rear end report. So in the system, then payments are anything that decreases your accounts receivable, right? Charges increase your accounts receivable, payments decrease them. So actual real payments like cash, credit card, check, insurance payment, those will decrease your AR. But other things as well, like adjustments, will also decrease your AR. And so adjustments, as far as like the computer is concerned, is just another payment, right? So in your table editor, you have your payment types table, and you can make adjustments in there. I always say to be as precise as you can with adjustments. Try to never post something that just says adjustment, because then when you run reporting on it, it's like, well, what was this for? Was this professional courtesy? Did the doctor tell me to write this off? Did I send something over to collections? Like, what is the reason for the adjustment? So if you put in adjustment types, when you run this report, then under payment types, you'll have, adjustment, bad debt, insurance adjustment, auto insurance adjustment, a time of service discount, personal courtesy. So when the doctor says, oh, $190,000, that seems like a lot of money for adjustments, then you can be like, yeah, but like, $170,000 of that was the insurance company not paying us the full amount of our charge, and of the other $30,000, then $20,000 you told us to adjust off as courtesy or whatever. So you always have the ability as a biller to cover yourself. And where I would see this most often is when people that don't understand medicine start to get involved in practices like, my husband's a lawyer and he thinks that we're writing off too much money, or things like that, where it's like, well, let me like show you what's being written off and why, and show you like, we have to charge this much and write off this much, so you can completely ignore these first things, just look at these other things, and we have $10 in the adjustment. So yeah, I can go and find that if you really need me to, but obviously I'm not like embezzling or something if I've clearly spread out where all of these are coming from, right?
Can that table be modified from a practice level, or does it have to be done by support?
No, practice level. So the question was, can we edit this ourselves, or do we have to call support for it? So the table editor, if you're familiar with the table editor in practice management, it's called TED. In the EHR, it's under the tools menu and tables. And the table that you're looking for is the payment table. Because again, an adjustment is just a different name for a payment. So you would just, take an adjustment that exists already, you'd clone it, and then you'd just rename it to whatever one that you want to use. And then whenever you're posting an adjustment in the system, on your drop-down list, you'd start typing an adjustment and you'd pick the adjustment that you want. Yep. So allowable over-under payments by payer group and check. This is another oversight report that's already moved over into the EHR from practice management in the financial oversight reporting of the report library. And this is going to specifically be for practices that have loaded allowable schedules into the EHR. So what this is going to do is, if you've got a Blue Cross Blue Shield schedule and you print or you post a Blue Cross Blue Shield ERA and you're supposed to get paid $43.56 and you get paid $42.17, it's going to show up on this report and say, oh, I got paid wrong for this, and so you can complain to your insurances. This again is going to be more fringe because not everybody loads their allowable schedule into PCC because it's a lot of work to upkeep an allowable schedule, right? Like every time a single code changes, you need to go into that schedule, you need to find that code, you need to set the new rate, you need to say when the start date is for the new rate, do all of that. So for most people, doing that to try and figure that stuff out is going to be, going a little above and beyond when realistically you're just trying to deal with things like, I want to see all the times I got paid $0, right? like I need to deal with that way more than like being paid 17 cents too low based on our contract amount or something like that. But if you have put the time in, this is a great report to run to see when you're not getting paid appropriately, or even when you're getting paid too much, so that you can contact them and ask, like, oh, did our contract go up? Like I noticed we started getting more on 99213s. Did our contract increase? Because a lot of times things like that will happen, they won't even tell you. Okay, quarterly reporting. So coding expertise is going to be often underutilized codes. So this is more of a report to look at with your clinicians, right? Where it's like, how many times did you put a counseling code in? How many times did you put an after hours code in because we don't normally have Saturday hours and we did this? Or somebody called and said, hey, I know you closed 10 minutes ago, can you stick around and I'm going to bring my kid in because they're sick or something like that for like after hours codes. So this includes but not limited to after hours, counseling, burn treatment, chronic care management, so that's your new G codes, circumcisions, screenings, foreign body removal, lacerations, nutrition, so diet, things like that, telemedicine, wart removal. So those would be the types of things it's looking for. So when you see something like 0.14%, that's looking at for every visit that you saw for like every, 6 visits you had like one of these codes, right? So it's never going to be above 1 and it's going to usually be significantly lower. But so don't be like, oh, it's at like 0.06 or something like that, and that's awful. You still should just compare it to like whatever the averages are. So depression and development screenings, this is going to be a similar thing. The AAP recommends that you do a structured depression screening for adolescents, 12 through 20. And so if you have that configured correctly in PCC, this will show up on the dashboard to show you how often you have somebody coming in those ages where they're getting those. Again, this also fits into financial because you should be getting paid for keeping kids from suicidal thoughts and things like that. And if you're not, then this is a great tool to argue with the insurances about why are you always this is going to cost you way less than if we're not doing these things, right? So you always want to have data to show those arguments. So, and again, similarly, immunization rates for children 2 years old. You want to know when you have kids that are unvaccinated or not unvaccinated, but have missed a vaccination so that they can get caught back up into their schedule. So the dashboard actually has this broken down really well into all the recommended shots that they're supposed to have before 2 years old, as well as if they received one of the combo vaccines as well, right? And we'll show you overdue lists on those. And as well, immunization rates for adolescents, for your Tdap, your HPV, things like that, like when you start to get into 12, 13, et cetera. And from there, we're going to yearly reporting. So the last section on this, yearly reporting. So pricing, I personally like to use RVU report that's found in SRS, which is the reimbursement analysis with RVUs by CPT code. The reason I like that is because it takes the code itself and it breaks it down by each individual insurance. So you can see if like one insurance is paying more than the others and need to adjust for there. There's the little caveat on here. If you'd like to see a deeper dive into pricing, I'm doing a whole entire class on pricing in this room on Friday at 10:15. And so we'll get way more into like how this report is used in that class. Immunization rates for influenza. This is another one, like how big of a bite is CVS taking out of you year after year by all of your parents going into their Walgreens or whatever, instead of coming into the office with people that give immunizations every day and know how to treat them, right? So that's a great way to look at that, as well as like what should you be ordering for stock. If you've noticed there's a huge decrease in the people that are coming to your practice and it's not something that you can claw back, should you be ordering as much flu stock as you did the year before, the year before that? Because obviously you don't want to have a bunch of waste, so you want to adjust for that. Accounts with credit balances. I say this as a yearly report because a lot of practices will say, oh, that's all going to come out in the wash. You know, somebody paid a copay when they shouldn't have, but their kid's going to come in with sniffles in December, and so that's going to wash out, right? The problem with that is sometimes, you know, that's always there, or the next time they come in, the front desk didn't look at that huddle sheet we talked about almost an hour ago and say, oh, we're not collecting a copay today because they have a $20 credit, and we'll use that towards this. So you want to make sure that like you're getting families back money that like realistically shouldn't be yours long time, because you know, while you'll sit there and say, well, it doesn't really hurt to have it, this is still like affecting your accounts receivable, right? Because it's deflating it by money, like personal money that you shouldn't have. It's also deflating how much personal money is actually owed to you because you have all these credits which are counted against the overdue balances that other families have. Also, since credits are something that can't be applied against a charge, when you run other reporting where you're looking at payments that are linked to charges, then you're going to have a bunch of things that like throw your numbers off because these can't be connected to anything, right? So like if you run something like the open payments report, which I think could be possibly the next slide. Nope, that's gross collection ratio. But the open payments report will show you all the money that's currently just like floating to whatever charge it can possibly find to pay off. Obviously, you're going to want to hard link it to the thing that happened that day. But if you have a bunch of credits still, then those are all going to show up on that report as well, because they're always going to float because they're never going to have a charge they can pay off. So the gross collection ratio report, this is a great way to look at like yearly reports against each other. So you can see this is all the money we collected from all of our major insurances in 2023, and this is all the money we did in 2024. So you can see variations. You can see like, oh, like like, why did we make less money this year? Why did we make more money? The money that we're making, is it coming from a certain like insurance demographic of patients? So you can see that in there. With that, another good supporting report for that is the payer mix analysis. So this is going to take all of that money and actually give you percentages so that you can look at things like, oh yeah, we were at 36% Blue Cross 3 years ago, and now we're at 47%. Or, oh, like, I really hate dealing with Molina, and they make up like 4% of our business, and it's been getting less and less all the time. Do we just want to stop accepting Molina people into our panels? Like, I've also had offices where they find out they've got like 6 families on a plan, and it's impossible to deal with, so they're just going to send those families a letter and be like, yeah, we're just sorry, but we're not accepting that insurance. If you want to stay, we can like work on some kind of like self-pay, and you can deal with your insurance, but we're not accepting that insurance anymore.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. So table configuration. So we talked about this already with the procedure table as well as the payments table. So now that table configuration is in the EHR, any table that you have now has an export to CSV option. So rather than just trying to like look through TED in practice management and being like, where are my procedures at? Are any of them at $0? Like, are the codes all right? Or things like that. You can literally just take this now and be like, oh, give me my entire insurance table, and I'm going to look down the column that says Medicaid, yes, no. I'm going to look down the copay column and make sure the names match. Like the name that says $20 matches the $20 copay. So you can actually just spit this out to a spreadsheet now, which makes all of that much easier than trying to do it live through the practice management side. Contract fee schedule. This is the allowables that we talked about with practices and pricing for CPTs and how that's going to. Okay, great. And again, if you wanna chit chat with me, I'll be here. I'm friendly. You can come talk to me.